Hey, what's going on, Guardians? My name is the Black Link, and today is Thursday, July 12th, 2018. And you know what that means? It's time for another issue of the Bungie weekly blog, This Week at Bungie. And this week, we'll be learning about changes coming in Update Patch 1.2.3, including bounties, changes to modifiers, and even more that's going to be dropping in next week's patch on July 17th. But first things first, I just wanted to say it is the night before GuardianCon. You'll notice that things have been a little bit quieter on the channel this week as we've been preparing for the mega convention on Friday, July 13th. Several members of the PD podcast team will be there live, including yours truly. So, if you're one of the lucky Guardians who was able to get out to Tampa for this event, keep an eye out for the PD crew in the wild. And if you're not going, make sure you're staying tuned to all your favorite content creators, who will no doubt be posting vlogs and pics and all kinds of things from this year's GuardianCon. Alright, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on to this week's TWAB. First things first, of course, Update 1.2.3 is merely days away. It's dropping next Tuesday on the 17th. There's going to be a lot of big changes coming within this update, some of which we've covered in previous videos. But of course, one of the biggest changes is the entirety of the Quick Play playlist in PvP is going to be changing to 6v6. So if you're somebody who's playing through Iron Banner right now and you just don't want the 6v6 to go away, it's becoming a permanent thing next week. We're also going to be seeing the return of the Rumble playlist next week. And soon, that'll become an immutable option for solo playing Guardians everywhere. But the first big thing covered in this week's TWAB is of course the return of the bounty system. Now this is something we haven't seen since Destiny 1. But daily and presumably weekly bounties will be returning in some facet in next week's patch. And this week, we get to hear from Bungie's senior design lead Tyson Green on how exactly bounties will work in Destiny 2. Here's what Tyson had to say. With the original launch of Destiny, bounties provided a set of daily objectives that players could use to advance faction reputation or earn XP to level up their gear. These were removed to streamline the activity experience in Destiny 2 and reduce the number of chores that players felt compelled to complete every day. In retrospect, we realized that this was an overcorrection, and optional daily objectives to achieve specific goals are something we want to restore. The bounties returning to Destiny 2 and Update 1.2.3 are a return to most of the properties of bounties in the Taken King. They will be obtained from a variety of vendors. They will generally award XP and faction reputation, though some will offer even better rewards, and can be redeemed in the field to immediately claim your rewards. In Forsaken, you may also see some bounties drop in the wild. Now, there are two new mechanics. Bounties will expire if left uncompleted, and acquiring them will cost a small amount of glimmer. We wanted to avoid the grab every bounty you see until your inventory is packed and sort them out later experience without constraining players to the tiny inventory they found in previous iterations of the game. In Forsaken, more vendors will have more bounties on offer, and some will provide legendary or better rewards for completing them. Now, Tyson notes that it's fair to observe that we didn't answer every question you might ask about the return of bounties, but what will be the fun in that? You'll discover exactly how they'll work and where you can find them next week, and in all weeks that will follow. This, of course, is one of the major changes coming in Update 1.2.3. The return of the daily bounty system has been something that D1 veterans of the Destiny franchise have really kind of been clamoring for since Destiny 2 came out. It is interesting to note that they reference the Taken King as kind of being the format for the bounties within Destiny 2, but they also mention that in addition to just being vendor bounties and the kind of stuff you can go and pick up every single day, you might be able to find some bounties out in the wild. Now, whether or not that means some of these bounties are going to be tied to stuff like exotic quests, sort of like they were back in year 1 of Destiny 1, we've yet to see. But starting next week, you're going to have a lot more to do every single day you play Destiny 2. And more content to me is never a bad thing. Alright, after that we get some more information about GuardianCon. Just a reminder that we're going to be having that Gambit exhibition tournament on July 13th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll be able to check out the GuardianCon stream if you're not going to be at the convention, and you'll be able to see some teams going head to head, attempting to take glory in the new Gambit game mode in Forsaken. It should be a really fun event, and I cannot wait to see the epic clash of content creators on the main stage. After that, we've got some coming quality of life changes in Update 1.2.3. Some of this stuff we've covered in previous videos with some of the patch notes that DMG put out a couple of days early. But we are going to be getting stuff like PC Clan Chat, which will add an in-game text chat channel that will allow D2 clan members to communicate. And we're also going to be getting several exotic armor fixes, as well as the exotic armor sandbox changes we've covered in previous weeks. First up, they fixed an issue that was causing targets marked by the Sanguine Alchemy to produce orbs when defeated. They also fixed an issue that caused Starfire Protocol to not work with the Dawnblade's Attunement of the Sky ability path. And finally, they fixed an issue that prevented Warlock melee attack damage when using the Ophidian Aspect exotic gauntlets and the Hive Swords or Orb Carry objects. But beyond that, we're also seeing some pretty big changes coming to some of the negative disadvantage modifiers within the Heroic Strike playlist. We get to hear from Bungie test engineer Drew Martineau about what exactly is going to be changing with 3 very specific modifiers. And here's what Drew had to say. Hey all, since the release of update 1.1.3, we've been collecting player feedback concerning Heroic Strike modifiers. On Tuesday, 3 of the more punishing modifiers will receive some adjustments. Ultimately, we want your power, stats, and armor modifications to matter, and we realized that our debuff modifiers were a little too powerful to allow players to see their impact. Here's what you can expect. First up, we've got Blackout. We wanted to ensure that enemy melees are threatening, but this shouldn't dismiss a player's power progression or the stats they choose to invest in with their armor. As such, this modifier is changing somewhat. It still increases enemy melee damage significantly, but it's now no longer a guarantee of players being defeated by a single melee from many enemies. Be careful though. If you're not at the recommended power for the Heroic Strike playlist, your enemies will be more powerful and pack a harder punch. So basically, it looks like we're going to be seeing a change to the 20 times melee damage that Blackout currently has. Blackout as it currently is kind of a 2-hit doozy. It removes your radar and it makes it so virtually every enemy in the game can one-shot melee you. It wasn't my least favorite disadvantage modifier, but it definitely was one of the more spooky ones whenever you were running a Prestige Nightfall or just general heroics. So it's interesting to see that they're going to be changing it and making the enemies a little bit less lethal. Next up, we've got Grounded. Now, there are many times players are considered airborne when they're not actually jumping. Amen to that. And to account for that, we're reducing the damage threshold so players aren't punished for things outside of their control. Additionally, we're looking to prevent players from falling to their demise from a height of about 2 meters, just as they happen to land on a rock or some other small object. This, I think, is a great change. Grounded's probably one of my least favorite modifiers in the game, simply because of the way I play Destiny 2. I love the overall mobility that's available to characters within Destiny 2. Everybody likes to move and jump, especially if you're a hunter. Whenever you're running strikes and just mantling all over the place, you very often find yourself in the air. It's a very aerial game. So being punished for that, especially when it's not really your fault, when like a floor drops out from beneath you or you're standing on a platform in the game, thinks you're in the air, you're taking a massive amount of damage. So I'm happy that they're scaling back on that just a little bit. It was also kind of silly to drop from really minimal distances and then completely die because the fall damage was too much with Grounded on top of it. So I'm definitely very happy to see that change. Finally, we've got Glass. This modifier reduces a Guardian's shields and health while increasing recovery. We slightly reduced the impact of this modifier to better enable players to see the effects of their overall power progression over time. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but right now Glass makes it so that your health and your shields are cut down by 50%, but are supposed to regenerate faster. Most of the time, it seems like you don't really notice that within the Heroic Strike playlist because you're just getting one-shot by a lot of big bosses. So I'm definitely happy to see that they're tuning back on that just a little bit. But anyways, those are the 3 modifiers that are going to be seeing a change, and they will be available at 9 AM Pacific on Tuesday, July 17th when update 1.2.3 goes live. Alright now, and for the final big bit of news within this week's TWAB, the Prismatic Matrix is going to be seeing a big change. And that big change is the fact that it's going to be going away for a while. The Prismatic Matrix is, of course, that new sort of experimental reward system tied to Eververse, where you could kind of go in, there was a knockout list of items that swapped out each week. Each week you could earn 1 free Prismatic facet that would guarantee you 1 item from that list. And the list was generally dupe protected. Now, they talk a bit about their philosophy with the Prismatic Matrix. They state that they wanted to give players more control over how exactly they earn Eververse items. They wanted to offer a more predictable path each week that guarantees access to specific items. And finally, they wanted to drop fewer duplicate items from Eververse. And for the most part, I'd say the Prismatic Matrix was pretty successful in that. But it was something that was experimental and it was never meant to last. They state that the original intent of the Prismatic Matrix was for it to be a special event, something to help players round out their collections, as the odds of earning the items that were eluding them improved as they continued to earn bright engrams. We had a limited number of weeks scheduled, designed to keep repetition to a minimum. The schedule of curated offerings is coming to an end, so the feature will be going on temporary hiatus starting next week. Thanks to some good feedback about this new feature, we've learned how to make it even better, so we'll continue to support it in Forsaken. We look forward to your continued feedback and are excited to relaunch the Prismatic Matrix in the next season of Destiny 2. So if you're somebody who's enjoyed the Prismatic Matrix, it's going to be going away for a little bit and returning when Forsaken comes out in September. There's not really too much else to say there. I think the Prismatic Matrix is a pretty decent idea. I like that you can earn the facets once a week. I stopped using them a while ago, so I just have 3 sitting in my inventory, and found that I never really personally needed them, as I got most of the stuff from the Matrix from bright engrams anyway. So hopefully they got some decent user information from the Prismatic Facets and the Prismatic Matrix, and we'll be seeing some improvements upon that system moving forward. And that is pretty much it for this week's issue of This Week at Bungie for the week of July 12th, 2018. It's all about next week's patch. There's a lot of stuff coming in it. Like I said, we've covered some of it in previous videos. We've got the Prestige Raid Layers going live next week. We've got some of the Exotic Armor Sandbox changes going live next week. And so many other things getting ready to drop in Update 1.2.3. Not to mention all the other crazy things going on this month, like GuardianCon starting tomorrow, and of course, the Solstice of Heroes starting later this month. We've still got quite a few things to do before Forsaken. But that's going to be it for this one, Guardians. Those are my thoughts. Leave me yours down in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Prismatic Matrix system within Eververse? Did you think it was a success? Did you get the things you needed from it? Or do you think that there needs to be some pretty big changes to it? Be sure to let us know. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. To those of you going to GuardianCon this weekend, well, hopefully I see you there. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you, Guardians, so much for watching. And as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.